This video is about macular degeneration. This is part 1, the aging retina. Hello, my name is Craig Blackwell. I'm an ophthalmologist in Santa Cruz, California. What we're making here is an informational video about macular degeneration. But even in a brief coverage of this subject, there's a little more information that will fit in a single video, so we're going to make this into 2 parts. In part 1, this segment, we will get acquainted with the retina and describe how aging changes in the retina evolve into macular degeneration. Then in part 2, we will cover the medical aspects of macular degeneration. We will look at what I think are some exciting things. In particular, how knowing the biology of the aging retina leads to strategies for prevention and treatment that are a big improvement over their predecessors. To get started, let's get oriented here on the eye model. So, starting in front is the cornea, the clear window that lets light into the eye. Behind that is the iris, the colored part. Then the lens, which is like the lens in a camera. And lining the inside of the eye is the retina, a layer of nerve tissue that acts like film in a camera. When we're talking about macular degeneration, we're talking about deterioration of the center part of the retina right here, and that's what we're going to talk about next. This diagram shows the retina as a layer of nerve tissue lining the inside of the eye. It functions like film in a camera. This is a photo of what it looks like if you look through the dilated pupil to the inside of the eye. To understand that, here is the same photo with labels to show you what you're looking at. On the left, the arrow points to the optic nerve. You can see arteries and veins branching out from the middle of the nerve. The rest of what you see is the center part of the retina. The outer white ring denotes the macula, the part of the retina responsible for good central vision. The inner ring denotes the fovea, which has the best fine detail vision. To see how the retina works, let us take a piece of retina and examine it more closely. This diagram shows all the layers of the retina. It is a little disorienting at first because light has to come in from the top and filter through the top and middle layers to reach the photoreceptors in the bottom layer. The rods and cones are the cells that sense light and generate nerve impulses, which go through several intermediate cells that eventually carry the nerve impulses to the brain. In the brain, the Morse code of nerve impulses is assembled into an image. Let us narrow our focus further to the lower half of the retina and its supporting structures. The rods and cones we were just referring to have their ends enveloped by a layer of square-shaped cells called the retinal pigment epithelium, abbreviated RPE. These cells are very important because they support the metabolism of the rods and cones. Among its several functions, the RPE manages the metabolism of vitamin A, and every day the bottom ends of the rods and cones are shed and must be digested by the RPE cells. If an RPE cell were to stop functioning for some reason, so would the photoreceptors it supports. The blood vessels that supply oxygen and nutrients to the lower half of the retina are located in a layer called the choroid. Separating retina and choroid blood vessels is a barrier layer called Bruch's membrane. Changes in this bottom layer of the retina are key to understanding what happens in the retina with aging and macular degeneration. Let's look at some retinas. Here's a picture of a retina from a young person. Notice the beautiful sheen from the surface reflecting from the surface contours of the retina. This photo shows a retina in middle age. Note the loss of that nice surface reflection. This photo shows a slightly older retina. What do you notice here? In the center there are little yellow or white dots indicated by the small arrows. These are called drusen. They are deposits of waste material underneath the retina. This diagram shows what is happening within the retina with aging. Number 1, deposits of waste material under the RPE cells are the drusen you saw in the last picture. These are the visible hallmark of an aging retina. But there are other things happening that you cannot see. Number 2, the RPE cells, after a lifetime of digesting the end segments of the rods and the cones, eventually becomes glutted with debris. They lose function and begin to die off. Number 3, Bruch's membrane becomes thicker, meaning less oxygen and nutrients are able to pass through to reach the retinal cells. And 4, over time, the number of capillaries supplying the retina decreases, also meaning less blood supply is available. In this diagram, we are trying to show how the aging changes listed on the left evolve into macular degeneration. In talking about macular degeneration, you typically hear the terms dry kind and wet kind. We will talk about the intermediate steps in a minute. Let us think about the dry kind as the path the aging retina usually follows. In the process, what you can see is the gradual buildup of drusen, clumps of debris located under the retina. What you cannot see are the number of other processes going on that cause gradually increasing stress on the RPE cells, which eventually cause them to die off. Here is another picture of drusen. This time they are medium to large in size with indistinct edges. We call these soft drusen. As RPE cells are lost, the photoreceptors they support also die off. The end stage of this dry pathway is called atrophic or geographic macular degeneration. Seen here is the pale area demarcated by the arrows. Central vision here is lost just as surely as by any other mechanism of retinal damage. While this so-called dry process is slowly marching on, sometimes it can branch off along another path, the wet kind, which means it can suddenly switch on the growth of new blood vessels under the retina. Because the new vessels are fragile and leaky, they bring serum and blood underneath the retina, which causes a rapid loss of vision in that area. Here is a photo of a bigger subretinal hemorrhage. Why is this a big deal? Because the dry kind usually progresses very slowly over many years of time, but the wet kind, the leakage causes a large decrease in vision over a short period of time, like a few weeks. Now, let us go back and look at the steps affecting the transition between the aging retina and macular degeneration. The steps in the aging process that mediate damage involve oxidation, inflammation, and reduced blood supply. In Part 2, we're going to cover the medical aspects of macular degeneration. We will look at risk factors, preventative measures, and connect what we know about the intermediate damage steps to understand current treatment strategies. This summary is meant for your education and does not replace examination and discussion with your ophthalmologist. More information is available at blackwelleyesight.com.